What's up, guys? Toad back with you again. The Sunday morning show. I've broken down the card. We do have some college basketball today. We have NBA and we have a few NHL games out there. I have narrowed it down. I have one additional play that I'm adding in the NBA in addition to my NFL plays, which thanks to the guys who were in the NFL video chat last night. My three plays in the NFL, once again, you can go watch that video if you want the specific analysis, are Indianapolis +4, New Orleans +3.5, and Houston +3.5. Or you might be able to get 4 on Houston. We can actually look and see what the market is doing. Let me bring up the screen here. Looking at the market on the NFL real quick. I always like to double check. The Giants are actually losing to the Panthers, which is just ridiculous. I wound up picking the Giants in my pools just because we got a number of 4.5 and it was up to almost 7. I'm just going to take the line value, and I don't really have great indicators any other way, but the Giants, they can't score, man. And I have the Giants defense in my fantasy lineup this week, although they're not doing that horribly, but it's not looking that great. The Colts are still a nice anti-public dog there. You might be able to get 4.5 on them, actually. They might be teetering on the 4.5 there. Lions, Texans, it looks like maybe that won't get to 4. I don't know. 3.5. If you want to take the 3.5 while it is out there, I guess it makes sense to do so because that one actually doesn't look like it's going back in that direction. And then Falcons, Saints, this one looks like it might actually hit 4 at some point. All three of them still look good as far as the cash percentages are concerned. They're all anti-public home dogs. So I like all of that. Let's talk about today's slate, man. I looked at the college basketball card. There aren't really any situations that I really want to jump in and get involved in. I'll just give you a couple of the situations that I saw that might be a little bit stronger here. And one would be, I do lean to Wyoming, but you have to lay a lot of points in this game. This is a situation where Tennessee State just went into Colorado State, so into high elevation. And this is Tennessee State. They're not used to playing in these Rocky Mountain high elevation environments. They went into Colorado State and they took them into overtime and almost beat them. And this is a pretty good Mountain West team in Colorado State, 23.5 point favorite, and Tennessee State took them into overtime. So Tennessee State, I don't see how they really keep it up in another game like this. And I think that was a couple days ago too. So with only one day off, they have to quickly turn around and do this and play again in high elevation in Wyoming. Looks like it's not a good spot to me for Tennessee State and Wyoming. They've been off for a week, so the question for them is, are they going to be a little bit rusty? I don't know, because their only game so far is against Concordia St. Paul, which some non-Division I team that Wyoming probably didn't really have full focus on. So this is going to be their home Division I opener at the very least, but they do have to go on the road and play Texas Tech in a couple days, so that is a bigger game. So does that mean Wyoming is going to look ahead? I don't know. It's possible, I guess, and the other issue that I have with Wyoming is that they play a very slow, ugly game. So if you're asking them to cover a huge number, it's a little bit of an ask for Wyoming, even though I still lean that way. And you've kind of missed the boat on the best number on this too. This is the case with college basketball, man. Even if you get to it in the morning, you see these numbers just shifting dramatically in a lot of cases. Wyoming's up from 8 to 10.5. Don't see the percentages yet on this, or 10.5 with juice, actually. I checked KenPom, and I think KenPom has this number at 7, which seems a little bit low, but this would be a situational play and not really a play on like the number there. So I do think Tennessee State is in a bad situation. So obviously I like the number way better at like 8. I don't really want to lay 10.5 with a Wyoming team that is a little bit challenged offensively and plays slow, ugly basketball, but it looks like a pretty bad spot for Tennessee State, in my opinion. And the other game I kind of had an eye on was Gonzaga, actually fading Gonzaga in this game because I just think that they're fat and sassy, man. They're plump and gay. Look at what they did in their home opener. Their season opener was this big, highly touted ranked matchup, and they obliterated Baylor by almost 40 points. This is just insane. But if you look at the percentages, there's no way that these are sustainable percentages, man. You had Baylor shooting 14.3% from 3 and 37.1% from the floor. Those are low numbers. Gonzaga, 41.9% from 3, totally unsustainable, and 57.1 from the field, also completely unsustainable. So that was just a game where everything went right for Gonzaga, and they just totally dominated the game. But like I said, all those percentages are huge outliers. Gonzaga was a 6.5-point favorite in that one, and they are considered to be one of the top teams in the country right now. Like, if you look at KenPom, I think they're like the number 3 team in the country. But Gonzaga, if they have a weakness, it is on the defensive side of things. They have an extremely good offense. Their defense, it's not one of those defenses from like a couple years ago where they were like all offense and their defense was really bad. So far, at least, it looks like Gonzaga's defense is still actually pretty good as well, but they're way better offensively than defensively still. And this Arizona State team, they can't score. Their offense is very challenged, but their defense is actually not bad. So if you like Arizona State in this one, the number keeps climbing. So at this point, even though it looks like the money has come in on Gonzaga, at this point, you're getting a pretty nice number on Arizona State if you do want to try to take a shot on that, because Gonzaga might just be feeling way too high on themselves right now after that huge opener to the season. They might not take Arizona State totally seriously, and if Arizona State is able to do anything, it is play a little bit of defense. So their defense is not horrible, so they may be able to get this into maybe kind of a lower scoring game and somehow stick within a huge number like this. It's up from 16.5 to 23 on Gonzaga, though, so huge line movement on this. 86% of the tickets, 97% of the cash on the Gonzaga side. So it does look like they're very public, but they do have the cash percentage on them as well. But the lean is to Arizona State, although Arizona State being 2-0, I mean, that doesn't really tell you what they actually are, because they're actually not that good a team. I mean, they almost lost to Idaho State in their home opener, I assume as a favorite. Let me see. They were a 17.5-point favorite in that one. I mean, they're playing a Big Sky team. But then they're actually an underdog at home against Santa Clara. So that tells you what the odds makers think Arizona State really is. They're not a very good team. But because they played both of these games and they played against lower conference teams and didn't do that great against either of them, even though this was actually technically an upset. Well, this wasn't at home, actually. This is a neutral site. That makes way more sense. This is in Henderson, Nevada. So that's why Santa Clara was a 5.5-point favorite there, because they wouldn't be at Arizona State, but they still probably would be like a 2-point favorite at Arizona State, which is just ridiculous. But Arizona State was able to get through both those games, even though technically that was an upset. I mean, I assume they're going to be focused on this game. It's just a matter of, is Gonzaga just so much better than them that they'll be able to dictate the score in this? And I'm not sure. I mean, Gonzaga might just not care that much about it because they're coming off such a huge win. So that would really be the handicap there. That plus the fact that these teams both actually play defense. But Gonzaga is going to try to push the pace. They play fast. But Arizona State doesn't play really slow. Like, they're kind of middle of the pack tempo-wise. So they might be able to kind of shift to play with Gonzaga if it's a little bit higher paced as well. But of course, if you want the underdog, you kind of want it to be a slower paced game. So those are my thoughts on a couple of those games there in college basketball, the ones that stuck out more to me. NBA, we got some weird situations here in the NBA, man. I do have one play, which isn't really a situational play. It's more of just I think this team is better than the other team type of thing, and kind of a misleading looking spread. We got Knicks Pacers is an interesting game here. Celtics Bucks actually also is. So the Celtics are actually up from 2.5 to 4.5 now, laying points on the road against the Bucks. 81% of the cash is also coming in on the Celtics, and 60% of the tickets on the other side on the Bucks. The Bucks have not done particularly well against the Celtics recently, and this is a revenge spot from Milwaukee because they did just lose on the road at Boston not that long ago. But is Milwaukee, I mean, I don't know, man. They're just not playing well right now. And they're coming off another loss. They're playing a third game in 4 days. They had to go to New York, and they lost badly to the Knicks again. But you could argue this will be a focus spot for Milwaukee because this Boston team already did beat them. They're back at home. They're coming off another blowout loss here, and they don't have anything up next to look ahead to, really. So Milwaukee probably is going to show up focus here. It's just a matter of, are they not good enough against Boston? And Boston is not really in an unfocused spot here, man, because Boston, they lost to Golden State, and I think that game hung them over a little bit, and they almost lost to Brooklyn as a double-digit home favorite in their last game 2 days ago. So after that, going out on the road to play this one game, even though they already beat Milwaukee once, I think this is a focus spot for Boston too. Because if you saw what they did like throughout the playoffs and whatever, whenever the Celtics had a not very good game at home and then they went out on the road, they tended to put in a nice focused effort on the road off of that, man. That's what the Celtics do. They play a bad game at home, they get out of there, they go on the road, and they give you a focused effort after that. So that might be the case with Boston here. My Boston Celtics, even though they did already beat this Milwaukee team once. So it looks like a spot where both teams have reason to show up here. So I do agree with the market move on that one and slightly lean to the Celtics in that one. And I also agree with the market in this Knicks-Pacers slightly, even though both of these would be going against an in-season revenge angle here. The Knicks sitting at a 3-point favorite at Indiana, 84% of the tickets, 75% of the cash on Indiana. So the public is coming in and wanting to play Indiana here. And I don't agree with that, obviously. Like I just said, I would tend to agree with the market more so on both of these. This is another situation, though, where Indiana did lose to the Knicks badly early in the season. And that was a big revenge game for the Knicks because Indiana was the team that eliminated the Knicks from the playoffs last year. So the Knicks really showed up for that game and beat them. But I think the Knicks are better than they look right now, better than their record looks. In Indiana, I mean, I don't know if I would say they're better than their record looks because they really struggle defensively. Indiana's sitting at 4-5 right now. I mean, they've had some losses against some better teams. That's true. And they've won against some better teams too. Like they beat the Celtics and Dallas. So they've been a weird mix. Indiana is coming off an ugly loss, though, at Charlotte, a game that Indiana probably should not be losing to Charlotte, especially not by 20 points. So debatably, it is a bounce-back spot for Indiana, and it is in-season revenge because the Knicks got playoff revenge on them and blew them out the last time they played. So there are reasons for Indiana to show up focused here, but the public is looking at the Knicks and thinking that they're laying too many points on the road here. And the public, you know, they love offense. And Indiana's been the offensive team of these two teams. The Knicks play an uglier style. They play defense, but you know that I like the better defensive team better. The Knicks are definitely the better team over the Pacers, as the odds makers are telling you. The Knicks are coming off a blowout win over Milwaukee, and that was in a return home spot. So it wasn't really the greatest spot for the Knicks, and they still totally handle Milwaukee. This Milwaukee team just not getting anything right here, but it does mean the Knicks are kind of in a potential, would they be in a letdown spot, kind of, because they're playing an Indiana team they already got revenge on. They're having to go back out on the road. But when you go back out on the road, you usually have a focused effort the first road game, and Philadelphia sucks so much they probably won't be looking ahead to Philadelphia. So there are reasons for both teams to focus in this game as well, because the Knicks still might want more revenge against Indiana for eliminating them last year as well. So I don't think the Knicks are going to really be in a letdown mode after blasting Milwaukee. I mean, Milwaukee's just been basically getting blasted by everybody. So slight lean to the Knicks there in agreement with the market, but obviously there are reasons why I don't want to play either the Celtics or the Knicks there, but very interesting at the very least. I'll just point out the T-Wolves are sitting at an 8-point favorite, and it looks like the public kind of thinks the Heat have value, being a big underdog at Minnesota. The public kind of thinks about this as like two good teams playing against each other, but the odds makers are telling you the Heat may be a little bit down this year, and Minnesota's a very good team. 86% of the tickets and only 67% of the cash on the Heat. So the Heat are one of those dreaded public underdogs, and I'm playing against the other public underdog here, which I'll talk about in a second. So I would lean to the T-Wolves just because the Heat look like they're getting a bunch of public action, public thinking that there's value. Taking the Miami side there, like I said, I don't agree with it. I don't think there's anything situationally to really look at here, though. I mean, Miami is coming off losing it to Denver and having to come out of elevation. They have 3 step-up games in a row here, so they may be starting to run out of steam a little bit, and they have not been able to compete against better teams, man. I mean, look at Miami's schedule so far. Their 3 wins are against the 3 weak teams that they played: Charlotte, Detroit, and Washington, and they've lost every single game against every better team that they've played. So they've been actually kind of an easy team to predict in a way because they've beaten all the bad teams they've played, and they've lost to all the better teams they've played. And, of course, Minnesota is a better team. So the lean would be to Minnesota in that one. Minnesota, I mean, they're coming off kind of an easy game against Portland and not traveling, so they're in a bit of the better travel spot there as well. So Minnesota, it looks like it sets up decently for those guys there. Dallas is at Denver, and that's a big game as well between two of the class of the Western Conference there. Denver's up from 3 to 3.5. Dallas looks like they're another public underdog here. 90% of the tickets, but 98% of the cash. At that, I don't know about that cash percentage there, because to me, it just looks like this is another public underdog here with Dallas there, getting maybe too much public action, because the public's looking at this, looking at the fact that Denver hasn't played well so far this year, and the fact that Dallas won the Western Conference last year, and maybe thinking, well, there's probably value in taking the points with Dallas. I'm not so sure about that. Dallas is starting a road trip, so it is typically a focus spot when you go out on the road, but they are coming off a game where they took Phoenix to the limit, basically. That's a tough game, the way Phoenix has been playing so far. Phoenix, 8-1 team right now. They've been playing quite well so far, but of course, it's not like Dallas is going to not be focused when they're starting a road trip at Denver. I mean, Denver is also still one of the better teams in the NBA, really. Denver's record actually isn't as bad as maybe people think that they've been playing, because Denver has actually started to go on a win streak here, but they started it out beating two weak teams in Utah and Toronto, barely beat Toronto, but then Denver started turning it on, man. They beat Oklahoma City. That's a big win, and they didn't suffer a letdown off of that. I thought this was maybe a sandwich spot off of beating Oklahoma City and having Denver up next, but they didn't lapse, and they beat Miami, and they're just staying at home here and getting Dallas in there, so it looks like it sets up better for Denver just because the travel spot is a little bit better, and Denver's coming off a bit of an easier effort in the previous game. I'm not going to do it, but you would be fading a public underdog in Miami there. So we have three big public underdogs here on the slate there. And then Kings Suns, I'm going to point out just because this line looks ridiculous, and I will tell you why it does. The Kings looked like they were going to be a 5-point underdog against the Suns. That would make sense because the Suns are the better team. They've been playing better, but now the line has shifted all the way to the Kings teetering on being a favorite. It's pick'em with juice on the Kings. We got 50% of the tickets evenly split and 73% of the cash on the Kings. So what gives? What's happening here at this line? How are the Kings almost bordering on being a favorite against the Suns? Yeah, so I looked at that line and I was like, there's got to be an injury or something here. There is. So the Suns, they're going to be without Kevin Durant in this game. So that's most of the explanation for what's going on with that line there. Kevin Durant, I believe he got injured in that game against Dallas, the previous game, so he's going to miss this game, but then that puts the Suns in kind of an injured player spot now, even though they're coming off a big win over Dallas. So I could see this going both ways now for the Suns, and also Nurkic might also miss this game too, because it looks like he got injured in the last game too, but he's day-to-day, so he might play. He's a game-time decision. Durant, I think, is definitely out. So that is the reason for the line moving like that. The Suns are on this huge win streak, though, man. So they're kind of a train right now. And I don't know if you want to step in front of that or not, but they've won 3 really close games in a row here, man. Winning by 2, 3, and 1 in their last 3 games against Philly, Miami, and Dallas. And that win against Dallas is big because they beat the Western Conference champs from last year. So that's a big win. And they had to take a road trip to do it. So they went to Dallas, beat them in their own house, and now they're coming back home. But it is without Durant, so because it's without Durant, it's possible Phoenix steps up their game, the injured player spot, right? When you have that injured star, you tend to get line value. The line has shifted like 5 points because of Durant being out. Maybe a little bit extreme. This is basketball, man. This isn't like it's not a quarterback being out, although basketball, I guess, is the next sport in line with like how much like an individual star player matters in basketball. It matters the most in football if it's the quarterback, and then I guess the next up is that it matters the next most with a star player in the NBA, I guess I would say. But that still seems like an extreme line move. So you may be getting a little bit of line value on the side of the Suns now because of that. And they may step up their game with Durant out because, like I said, it's the injured player spot, but they are also potentially in a letdown spot as well. Off of that big game over Dallas, Sacramento, I mean, they're going to show up against Phoenix. I mean, it is Phoenix. They know what's going on here. They just lost at home to the Clippers, so it might be good for them to just get out of there and go on the road and focus on basketball. And they don't have a bigger game up next tomorrow against San Antonio, so they'll probably bring focus against this Phoenix team here. So both teams may actually have reason to step up their game there. If Kevin Durant was not injured and you had the Kings getting 5 points in this game. It might actually be a decent spot to play the Kings. But because of that injury, because of that extreme line move, I don't think that it really is now. And then you got Raptors, Lakers. Saab, what's up? You like the Houston Rockets. Where are they at here? They were the first game up on the schedule. They're moving up from -2 to -4. They're an anti-public road favorite here against the Pistons at this point. Who would expect the Pistons to be a public team, man? Pistons, 86% of the tickets and cash right now. I didn't have much of a read on this. I didn't talk about this game, but Houston, I mean, I could break it down real quick if you want. They just lost to Oklahoma City, so on the one hand, that's a big step-up game where you're going to try to bring your A game against Oklahoma City, who's probably the best team in the Western Conference. But they lost it, and they got kind of blown out almost by 20 points. And it's a 2-game road trip, so they do have reason to show up focused for this one, even though they are coming off a big game. Because typically a team is going to want to split the road trip if it's only a 2-game road trip, and they don't have a bigger game up next. So I do actually agree that I don't think Houston's going to be in a hangover spot, even though it was a big step-up game and they lost to Oklahoma City. I don't think that's a game that's going to send them spiraling, crashing down to earth or whatever. I think they are actually going to show up after that happened. And Detroit, I think they're probably playing a little bit over their heads right now with the fact that they have 4 wins now. But their wins are against a massively injured Philly team, Brooklyn, who's not very good, the Lakers, fairly impressive win. That's their most impressive win probably, but still, it's a very old LeBron and AD Lakers team there. And then they beat Atlanta, who I think Atlanta's a bit down this year too. Not to take away anything from Detroit. They're playing better, man. I mean, they're improving as a team. Cunningham is a very good player. But, yeah, I mean, I probably tend to agree with you on that one. And they're coming off another nice, I mean, it's still a nice win for them over Atlanta. It's nice for them to beat anybody, even though I think they'll still be focused with Houston coming into their house and Houston playing pretty decently as a team. But if both teams are going to show up for this, I think you're probably right that the public is probably getting this one wrong, thinking that there might be value taking the points with the Pistons here. I think the Rockets side maybe looks right there. Yeah, I mean, Detroit played 2 games that were decided by 1 point. I don't know if they're really going to look ahead to Miami, maybe, because it's still Jimmy Butler there, but Miami's very down this year, as I just said. So I don't know. But with Detroit, I don't know that a team like the Pistons really gets themselves into look-ahead spots because Detroit's not a very good team. So they tend to just try to show up focused. But if they did play a couple of 1-point games in a row, they did put in some big efforts in those games. So I could see that. Generally, yes, I agree with the Rockets side there, but not a game I'm going to play. And then I was going to point out Raptors-Lakers. I took the Raptors last night and got the cover there. Oh, I didn't even mention 3-1 day for me yesterday, and my only loss was the stupid Calgary Flames in a shootout. Calgary got themselves down 2-0 early in that game and weren't quite able to get out of it, even though they tied the game and sent it into overtime. With Calgary being an underdog, I mean, that's not a bad situation to be in, really. The moneyline underdog sending it into OT. Calgary outplayed, I think it was Buffalo. They outplayed Buffalo in the game, man. They had more shots. I think they had more hits. It was just not a good situation. They got themselves in a 2-0 hole like that. And then I've completed my 4-0 sweep of the college football week with 2 moneyline underdog wins yesterday in college football. That feels real good, man. College football 4-0 with 3 underdog moneyline wins in college football this week. Just nailing it. And then Toronto finished my nice day. I was going to have a winning day anyway, but it was either going to be a very small winning day or because of those moneyline wins or a nice 3-1 fairly decent winning day, and that's what it wound up being with Toronto covering. I got greedy, though, man. Toronto was staying in this game against L.A. last night against the Clippers, and they only lost by 2. Toronto could have potentially given me that money line cash in that game, too, man. It was close. They almost looked like they were able to do it. They had a nice fourth quarter, and they were right in that game, right until the buzzer, basically, man. So Toronto, they got me the cover. I'm happy about that, obviously. I didn't expect them really to win outright, but I did have a little bit of money on the money line because when it's the NBA and you're playing an underdog that's within 10 points, throw a little bit of that bet on the money line, man. And you may be in a decent position to get that cash. Toronto, I mean, they're just in the middle of a road trip where it's just step-up game after step-up game here, man. They played Denver really close for the second time this season. Got blown up by Sacramento, probably because they were kind of in a hangover spot after playing Denver so tough. They probably just weren't able to bring that effort again. 2 days later at Sacramento, coming out of elevation too. So they lost that one. Last night was a better spot again because they had 2 days off and they were just staying on the Pacific Coast, and it was a bad spot for the Clippers. You can go see my handicap of that game in yesterday's morning show. Toronto caught LA at a good time, played them real tough, but now Toronto's again coming off another step-up tough game. And you've seen that every time they've done this, they've lost. I mean, they did it after they played Denver tough the first time. They lost to Charlotte, although I think they actually covered that game by 1.5. And then off of the other Denver close game there they played, they lost to Sacramento pretty badly. Now they're coming off another tough performance there where they almost pulled off the upset against the Clippers. Now they're facing the Lakers. They played the Lakers fairly tough on their home floor earlier this season, but that just might serve to focus the Lakers here, man. So Toronto, I think they're in a spot where they may be running out of steam here, going through this kind of West Coast gauntlet here. They're playing a back-to-back here after putting in a huge effort in the first leg of the back-to-back last night and falling just short. I think they might run out of gas here against the Lakers, even though I don't think the Lakers are as good as maybe people think they are. The Lakers, they already had their return home spot in their previous game, and they did not suffer a distracted spot there, and they were able to beat Philadelphia, which Philadelphia, again, they're just horribly injured right now, this Philadelphia team. But LA, this is still going to be their second game back home now, which is usually not a terrible spot for that team that returned home. It's a better spot if they did really badly in that return home spot, which LA did not. But still, I think the Lakers, they're probably going to be focused for this game. That would be my opinion, because Toronto actually did play them fairly tough when they played them before, not too long ago, actually on November 1st, so really not that long ago at Toronto. So the Lakers may remember that and may take Toronto seriously because that game was pretty close. They don't have anything to look forward to either. So I think the Lakers may see what Toronto did last night as well against the Clippers, their LA counterparts. So I do lean to the Lakers in this one. Lakers sitting at 10.5 though, so you're laying a big price with the Lakers if you do like that side. 66% of the cash on them, and tickets evenly split 50-50. So it looks like the public doesn't agree with laying the points of the Lakers as much because they may see, Toronto played them tough at Toronto, so they have the ability to do that, and they just almost beat the Clippers last night, man. So maybe they'll be able to hang within this number against the Lakers too. I don't know. To me, it looks like it has the makings of a spot where Toronto might lose by margin in this one, but I don't really want to do it. I don't quite want to lay it, but this was the first one I left off my NBA card, by the way. And then my actual play in the NBA is the Oklahoma City Thunder -6. You knew this was coming because I talked about almost every other game on the slate, and I told you it was going to be an anti-public home favorite, and it is the Oklahoma City Thunder -6. I think the odds makers are telling you what you need to know here, man. They're telling you the Oklahoma City Thunder are the better team over the Warriors by multiple points here. I agree with it. The public's coming in on the side of the Warriors to the tune of 80% of the tickets, 70% of the cash, which just moved up a little bit. So the Warriors look like one of those dreaded public underdogs, getting more of the public action than in the ticket percentage than what the cash percentage is. So it looks like some of the larger bets are going against the public sentiment there. More of the small tickets coming in on the Warriors side. So the public coming in more so on the Warriors side. And why wouldn't they, right? Because the Warriors, what are they, 7-1, 7-2? The Warriors have looked really good so far this season. That's the sentiment. The Warriors are back, baby. It's still Steph Curry, right? 7-2. The Warriors look really good so far this season. Yeah, they do. But look at what their wins are, man. Portland, Utah, New Orleans twice, Houston in overtime, Washington, and then they had a huge win against Boston. But that is the one good caliber team that they were able to beat. Although granted, they haven't played anybody else, so they've only played who they've had in front of them. But I faded Golden State in their most recent game against Cleveland because I thought coming off that big Boston upset, I thought Golden State was just not going to be able to maintain that energy again 2 days later against a pretty good Cleveland team. And Golden State lost the game. They got blown out. So on the one hand, you might think, well, doesn't that mean Golden State's going to bounce back off of a blowout? I don't think so, because that was a step-up game as well against an undefeated Cleveland team. That's a game that you get up emotionally for. At the very least, it was just that I don't think Golden State could sustain it coming off that big upset win of Boston. It's really tough to go on the road and play three like of the top teams in the NBA, basically all in a row like this in Boston, Cleveland, Oklahoma City. That's not easy to do for Golden State, man. So I think they might be starting to run out of steam, and that loss breaks their win streak there. And when you have a loss that breaks your win streak like that, and it's against a big opponent like that, sometimes that hangs you over into the next game. And I think that might happen with Golden State here. It might hang them over into this next game against OKC. Even though they're going to want to show up focused because they know OKC is good. But on the other hand, OKC is obviously going to show up focused against them too. And OKC is in the way better travel and rest spot here. I mean, Golden State's traveling all over the place here. They were in Boston a couple days ago. They were out on the East Coast. Now they're coming back, to the Midwest, basically. So a lot of travel for Golden State, having to play 3 good opponents in a row. And that does mean that against like the top tier opponents that they face, Golden State's only 1-1. And debatably, they maybe should have lost to Boston, too, because Boston erased like a big deficit in that game and took the lead in the fourth quarter. It looked like Boston was going to put it away, and they didn't, so Golden State had to put in more of an effort there. So Golden State, I mean, they're not playing a third game in 4 days. They're playing a third game in 5 days, but still, it looks like they might be like running out of energy a little bit here. And the line is telling you Oklahoma City's the better team, even though the public is probably looking at this and thinking this is a heavyweight clash between 2 of the top teams in the Western Conference. But I think that Golden State is probably more of like I don't know that they're sitting like right at the top of the Western Conference. Like I would not put them in the same like tier as like Oklahoma City, Minnesota, maybe Dallas is still up there. I think Golden State's a little bit below those teams, and the odds makers are telling you that with this line at 6. Oklahoma City, they're not really coming off of anything as big. I mean, I thought they might be in a bad spot against Houston here because they had just lost at Denver. That was their first loss of the season. They went into elevation. Tough game against Denver. Denver, I would also put still up there near the top as well of the Western Conference, by the way. And OKC lost that game. That's the type of game where you step up like that, you lose your first game, you tend to be hung over in that next game, man. I think I actually lost on Houston in this game. I think I did actually play it because I thought it was a sandwich spot because they did have this game against Golden State up next. And Oklahoma City did not suffer from that bad spot there, man. They still showed up and played really well against Houston. So that shows me something, man. This Oklahoma City team is good. Like, they can come into a game in a bad spot like that, and they're not fazed by having their first loss. They're not fazed by coming back down out of elevation after playing a big game against Denver. Not fazed at all, and they still just beat up Houston. So this Oklahoma City team, they're for real, man. They can beat you up. They can play defense. They're one of the best defenses in the NBA. So I like Oklahoma City in this one, man. I think they're going to continue to show up for these games. They're in the better travel spot because they're already back home. So give me Oklahoma City -6 there in what looks like a game where the public likes the underdog in this one. And I think I would prefer to look at what the odds are telling you, man. The odds makers are telling you that, I should continue to share my screen. Oh, no, I still am. Never mind. I thought I took it down. What's up, Andrew? You don't give 2 shits about sports. Oh, thank you. Just my way on this show makes you want to watch it. Thank you. Saab, yeah, you like OKC as well. 76ers bad streak could continue. That's one of the games I did not talk about. I don't know, man. No, I mean, based on the market, I like the 76ers side there. They're down from 5.5 to 4.5, but they have 88% of the cash, 78% of tickets on the other side on the Hornets. I think the Hornets are playing kind of above their pay grade right now would be my opinion on that one. I would lean to Philadelphia there. I mean, Philadelphia needs to get some wins some way, and this is a team they can beat. Also, actually, I think Charlotte's in a letdown spot. I mean, they just crushed Indiana, but they are starting a road trip. So starting a road trip does usually tend to be a focus spot, but after you beat up Indiana like this, that's a big win for Charlotte, man. Crushing the team that made the Eastern Conference Finals last year in Indiana. I think they could be in a little bit of a letdown spot there. So I like the Philadelphia side. Philadelphia at 1-7. I mean, the public's not going to want anything to do with them. But Charlotte, I think their record looks a little bit better than they actually are at the very least. In Philadelphia, I mean, they're probably better than their record looks at this point, because how could they be worse, really? Philadelphia is in a return home spot, though, from the Pacific Coast, so that's not good either. So I guess that's why I decided not to play this game. I don't even remember what my thoughts were. I looked at this game earlier this morning and was like, I'm not playing it. But both teams are in bad spots here because Philadelphia's returning home from the Pacific Coast with only 1 day off. And they do have the Knicks up next, which is a bigger game as well, and Cleveland up next. So it's not a good spot for either team, man. Yeah, True. So that could be a look ahead, but yeah, it's not a good spot for either team. That's what I would say. But then when that's the case, the market kind of tends to be the clincher for me, and the market does look like it's signaling on the Sixers, but obviously I'm not going to do it. But at this point, I think probably what you see is like these bettors, the bigger money bettors who are coming in on the 76ers, they're doing it because the stock is so low on the 76ers right now. And basically the odds in this game are telling you the Sixers are like barely better than the Hornets, which I don't know if that's really the case, but you are looking at a very injured 76ers team. But at this point, I think it's like the stock is as low as it's going to get on the Sixers, basically. And it's a little bit higher than it should be on the Hornets. So I think that's kind of the idea there. Where Sixers, just look way too bad at 1-7. And who was I talking about? The Hornets look maybe better than they actually are with their record. Blazers money line. I don't know about that one either. Nate, what's up, man? So you want me to wind up talking about every NBA game, man? I was trying to make this video short. I was going to talk about NHL real quick, but there's almost no NHL games, so I will. Grizzlies, I probably agree with what you said there. I mean, they're sitting at -2, down to -1, 74% of the tickets, 77% of the cash on them, though, but it does look like there's been some reverse line movement against the public sentiment here. Against the Grizzlies side there. So that one's a tough one for me to gauge as well. I don't know what the spot is that Memphis is in because like I said, I look at these games and then if I'm not playing it, I kind of forget about it. I mean, this is actually a focus spot for Memphis though because they just built up some momentum with a couple of wins at home. They beat Washington. No one cares about that, but that serves to like continue the momentum. And now they get to go out on the road. Your first road game, even though I know they're playing the Lakers next, but that's in a couple of days. I expect them to be focused in this first road game, man. A first game of a road trip tends to be a focus spot for teams, so I wouldn't want to fade Memphis in that spot. And then even though it is Portland, and Portland, Portland's coming off at least a step. Oh, Portland's in a return home spot. Portland's in so they just kind of had a step-up game against Minnesota on the road, even though they lost the game pretty badly. But they're returning home now with only 1 day off. They're playing a third game in 4 days, all in different cities. So I don't agree with you, actually. I like the Memphis side in this one because Memphis is starting a road trip. They have that momentum continuing. Portland's returning home from a road trip. 4-game road trip, so it was a decent length road trip there, coming back home here, and this is sandwiched in between games against Minnesota, too, so I actually do not like the Portland side here, and the rest and travel spot here that Portland is in is really not good. Playing a third game in 4 days, like I said, all in different cities, in San Antonio, Minnesota, and then coming back all the way to the Pacific Coast to Portland. I don't like it, man. And it's a late game, too, so they have to readjust their body clocks to that. No, I like Memphis in that one. Tough spot for both. I don't know. I think the spot's a little bit easier for the Grizzlies, man, because they're starting a road trip there, and they're coming off an easier game against the Washington Wizards. So I like the Grizzlies in that one. And now NHL, let me see here. All right, NHL, we only have 3 games up. I don't know if there's much to comment on, but I will comment on the one spot that I think is the strongest situation, but I'm still not going to do it. But that would actually be to fade the New Jersey Devils. But they're a massive favorite, up from -300 to -330, 85% of the tickets, 73% of the cash on the other side 73% of the cash on the same side on New Jersey, but less of the cash than the tickets on New Jersey. If you were going to play this one, man, you could probably take a nice puck line on San Jose. You might even be able to find like a +2 puck line or something on San Jose and like turn this into a spread bet. And then they only have to come within that number of goals and sprinkle a little bit on the money line. Cause I actually think New Jersey's in a bad spot in this game, man. It's just that San Jose is such a weak team that I don't really know if San Jose is going to be able to do this, but New Jersey, I mean, they're in a back-to-back. They're in a third game in 4 days, although 2 of the games are at home. And the only travel they had in there was going over to where does I think the Islanders play in Queens? Or no, they moved from Queens to Brooklyn, right? They play at I think they play at the Barclays Center now, where the Nets play. I forget because I think the Islanders used to play at the Nassau Coliseum out in like Queens. Now they play in Brooklyn, I believe, which is still technically on Long Island, sort of. So New Jersey, but what I'm saying is New Jersey didn't travel very far. to play that game against the Islanders yesterday, but still, they won against the Islanders in overtime, and the Islanders have been playing pretty decently recently, so not a bad win for New Jersey there. Now they get this awful San Jose team. New Jersey having to play on a back-to-back, and they have Florida twice up next, and then Tampa Bay, Carolina, Washington. So they have a whole bunch of bigger games up next, man. So this looks like a spot where New Jersey might look past San Jose, in my opinion. And New Jersey, I mean, with no rest here and having huge games up next, doesn't look like a very good spot for New Jersey here. San Jose, I mean, they've actually been playing a little bit better recently. They started getting tastes of victory here as they've started being able to win games, but the best team that they beat was the LA Kings, so it's not like they're beating the best teams in the NHL, beating Utah, Columbus in overtime, in Chicago, and Utah was in overtime too, but still, San Jose's getting some wins under their belt there. Now, they have multiple days off, dude. They have 2 days off, and they're starting a road trip, so San Jose, they are going to the East Coast, so they get multiple days off. They get to focus on this road trip. So that first game of a road trip usually tends to be a focus spot. So I expect a focused effort from San Jose for that reason. And they're coming off losing their last home game to Minnesota. So it might be good for them to just get out of there. I know Minnesota's a very good team, but just get out of there, go on the road, get to refocus, see what you can do in this game. So I actually like San Jose in this one. I would, like I said, play like the puck line in that one if you liked it. Islanders play like a bunch of queens. Yeah. The Islanders, I mean, they're playing okay this season. I would say they're kind of a mid-tier team. New Jersey's a pretty decent team, but still, the spot here sets up better for San Jose. And then Columbus, Anaheim, I mean, whatever. I mean, it looks like there is market movement on this one, down from minus 135 to minus 116 on the Anaheim side, 78% of the tickets on them, but 57% of the cash on the other side on Columbus. So that game, I mean, the market read looks pretty strong on the Columbus side, but I don't really see much of a situational angle there with Columbus continuing a road trip out there, although they did just fall below 500 because they've lost 4 straight games after they were 5-3-1. They're 5-6-2 now. And they're finishing a road, or not they're finishing a road trip. They have one more game on the road trip, but they may be looking to try to salvage a game on the road trip here and win something. But they're on a back-to-back as well, so I don't see that much of an angle for playing Columbus here, really, other than that they want to finally win a game on the road trip, basically. And Anaheim's coming off a game where they lost to Minnesota as well, but they're staying at home. That is a big, they do have this sandwiched in between bigger games against Vancouver, Minnesota, and then Vegas up next, but when you're on a big loss streak like this and you didn't do well against Minnesota there, I don't know that you necessarily show up unfocused here, man, and get distracted by the fact, like, not, I don't know if you're going to overlook a bad team is what I mean to say. Even because if you're a team that's also bad, you don't really, you don't have the luxury of like overlooking anybody, really, is what I mean. So I don't really know about that market read there. And then Minnesota against Chicago. Minnesota's down from minus 190 to minus 189. 74% of the tickets, 85% of the cash on Minnesota, though. So Minnesota, it looks like Minnesota, has the cash percentage edge there. I'm not so sure about that one either. They're going to Chicago. I might disagree with them. Minnesota's been playing real well. They're at 10-2-2 now. But they're playing a third straight road game. They've already had a successful road trip. They went out to the Pacific Coast, and now they're having to come back to the Midwest here. And they're playing a third game in 4 days and having to shift time zones here. So it doesn't look that great to me, the spot for Minnesota here, man. They probably will have Gustafsson in net again because they gave him a rest in the first of the back-to-back there with Fleury in there. So Gustafsson probably will be in net again in this one, but the travel spot and just the rest spot doesn't look good to me for Minnesota, playing a third game in 4 days, all in different cities and having to come back out of the Pacific Coast and already having a successful road trip. They don't really need this game necessarily, so they might overlook Chicago a little bit. Where Chicago, I mean, they're coming off a tough game, too, against Dallas, where they went on the road, faced Dallas, a very good team. They lost the game, though. Now they have 2 days off, and they're coming back home for a single home game against Minnesota, where they have a bunch of days off after this, too. So Chicago's got a lot of rest before and after this game against Minnesota. So it looks like probably Chicago's going to be focused on this game because it's like the only game that they play in a 7-day span, pretty much. So that's how I look at all those. that's going to do it for me, man. A long Sunday morning video here. My actual plays are the NBA play I just gave out on Oklahoma City -6. And then my NFL, you can go watch my NFL video. My plays there are the Indianapolis Colts +4, New Orleans Saints +3.5, and Houston Texans +3.5. And I don't know if you might be able to get better numbers on any of those, but those are the plays. I think those are all strong situations. That's going to do it for me, man. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out. Nate, Saab, good to see you, man. My fellow sports bettor there, Andrew. Thanks, you guys, for all hanging out here. That's going to do it. And I'll be back again, I guess, tomorrow morning with the Monday morning video, I suppose. Peace out, guys. Let's have a good one, and let's get some wins today. Peace. And I'm Tower Gang Toad, of course. Follow the Tower Gang podcast and subscribe to the Patreon, patreon.com/Tower Gang. Live pre-show, post-show. You get to hang out in a Telegram with us. Peace out.